Hi, I'm Paul Griffiths and welcome to my YouTube channel. Come along and follow me on all sorts of meaningless, pointless adventures. You'll see how not to do things, you'll see how not to drive things, how not to fix things, and you'll probably see a lot of how to break things. You'll see things from farming to heavy construction to heavy vehicle repairs. You'll see electrical projects. You'll see all types of things, not limited to anything. So jump on board and come along for some adventure with, well, me. Have a bit of a laugh and maybe even learn something. This is going to be the greatest video I've ever seen. And I can say that unbiasedly, and I really have nothing to do with anything except for putting it together on the screen and talking about it. So this video is about my grandfather, who I reckon was the coolest person that ever walked the face of the earth. Pa Atkinson, or Jack as everyone called him, he was always Pa to me. He was really, really special to me. I can't explain it any better than that. He was always full of fun and laughter and everything else, and I don't know what else to say. He was a man's man. He was big and he was strong. He was, he's extreme, all about family. He lived a pretty basic life. He drove trucks most of his life after he came back from the war, or at least to me he did. And he always spoke about his Mack. He drove a Mack. It was an Mack, and you'll see that through the video. And there's not much more I can say apart from that, but he was a pretty cool bloke. I was quite shattered when he passed. It was like losing my own father, but different, if that makes any sense. It was about 25 years ago, it'd have to be now. It was before I was married. I'll come back from Queensland, and the first person I wanted to see after working up in Queensland was Pa, to tell him what I'd been up to, Grandma and Pa, and I went around there and he had a stroke. He was on the kitchen floor. This big strong man he wasn't very strong that day. Anyway, he died a few days later, but that's neither here nor there, and let's not dwell on that. He was pretty good to us kids. So anyway, let's get the video started. So from what I know, Pa worked at he worked for a company there at the sawmill. It was at Briar Hill, just out of Greensborough, and pretty sure the bloke's name down at the sawmill was Eddie Squires, and Pa came from a place called Deniliquin, which is up where it's really flat, and that's about it's probably about 4 hours north of Melbourne. And he, after the war, due to whatever on the farm, he decided to return back from Melbourne and return back to Melbourne with his new bride, my grandma, and he worked down there at the sawmill after a few other jobs. And you can see we're just working around the sawmill here, different people. They were obviously pretty big sawmillers, and apparently the business is still there today. I think it's just a hardware shop now. Employed a lot of people. All the houses in the immediate area, were pretty much owned by the sawmill, my father's told me, and they were all built of wood because they were sawmillers. So the wood used to come a long way at different times. So in here it talks about Flowerdale. I know it came from King Lake. It came from up in Otways, up at Wailangta, and Dad's told me there was stuff down in the Air Valley as well, big plantations down there. Yeah, so that's about it. I haven't seen him yet in the video, but we're getting there. These are all the fellas at the sawmill. So they did kiln drying and everything else. They had a big cabinet shop. If you know more about sawmilling than me, you'll probably know exactly what's going on and be able to tell me more about it than I can tell you. Got to think, a lot of these... So this film was made in 1948. Pa was 26 years old at the time. Most of the men you'll see in this, we've all been to war and probably just got back. It's quite astounding, really, if you think about it. There you go, that's timber. Look at that. So they had, I know they had a K5 International, they had a few other trucks, they had a Rio. And Pa's job was pretty much driving trucks. He'd go up into the Otways. This country here is not Otways. Well, it's logging at Flowerdale. There you go. It says that there. So they all pretty much Pa did was drive trucks, as far as I know. So they'd cart logs out of Flowerdale and King Lake, but out of the Otways, because he'd leave at 3 in the morning to go down to the Otways, and I think he'd get back in at 5 o'clock at night. Now here's Pa now driving a Oliver Clee track, and this is, Mum gave me this DVD a couple of years ago for Christmas. I can tell you I was pretty gobsmacked when I saw it. I was quite speechless for some time. There's Pa driving the Clee track, snigging logs up to load them. That's an Mack. They had 2 of them there. One of them had like a normal cab, like a civilian type cab with a military front on it, and the one Pa drove didn't. It was a military cab, and what I believe, and I don't know, but I reckon it had the best part of a Blitz cab put on top of it. I don't know that that's correct. I seem to recall, where's Pa here? There he's chaining down the load. So that's one of the trucks. That's one of the Macks leaving. And there goes Pa's truck now. You can see I'm pretty sure he told me it was like gold plate inside. And here's the other one with the civilian cab on it. Now these would have been, you've got to think, these are only like 5 or 6 years old, those trucks, and so with the Clee track. There's Pa pulling up at Briar Hill. It's there he is, giving directions about unrolling the logs off the truck. So depending on what part of the world you're from, if you're from Australia you'd know this already, but all the wood in Australia, the hardwood, is very, very heavy. It doesn't float, it just sinks. So the loads might look very big, but Pa's told me he used to get booked for overloading constantly. The truck did about 36 mile an hour flat out, and I'm going to say length, it was probably 100 mile from, it might have been 120 mile from Briar Hill. And he'd do 1 return trip a day when he was going down there. So these sawmills will probably be a lot different than if anyone from America's watching, because our timbers in Australia is just so much different than over there. It's all hardwood. But that's what we have to work with because of the type of country Australia is, I guess. Notice how no one's fat. we all worked for a living back then. So I don't know much about the Briar Hill sawmill operation. I obviously did a lot of kiln drying and things there. And I could keep on talking, but I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I just know it's all pretty special, really. And I think it's colour in 1948 and in Australia too, which, don't take that the wrong way, but we didn't have a lot of things that possibly a lot of other countries in the world had after the war. That's a Blitz. That would have been the power plant for the sawmill. So they'd still be up at Flowerdale here, I reckon, or King Lake. You can tell by the trees. The forest, the timber up there is nowhere near as dense as it is in Otways. It's just like jungle up there, and different types of trees too. And because it rains so much, up there they were getting, well, when I was a kid up there, we get 84 inches of rain a year. It's hard to believe they were sticking all these logs out of the bush and they didn't have a canopy on the dozer. But they were younger and tougher then. Yeah, that's a Blitz log truck. Because after the war, that's all anyone had. There was very, very few new vehicles, just all ex-military stuff. So this is another mill. This is completely separate. I don't know where this one is. I don't think it's in Otways. So when Pa went down to the Otways, he'd only ever cart back sawn timber. It might be down there, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that's the K5 International. So my dad actually grew up not far up the road from here, at Briar Hill. He grew up at Greensborough or Montmorency, depending on where you are. But it's all suburbia now, the whole lot of it. It's kiln drying and reconditioning of wood. There you go. It looks like they had a joinery shop there. I'm pretty sure in here they show you making doors and things. So you must be checking the moisture of the timber, I'd be guessing. There you go, joinery shop. I haven't seen this, haven't watched this for a little while now, so forgetting all about everything that's on here. Now, I'm not really the right person to be narrating what's going on, because apart from Pa, I don't know any of the people. No, there's no nail guns there, is there? It looks like a kid that was working there. Might have been an apprentice. Yes, even with the rationing after the war and the fact that Pa worked at the sawmill, took him years to build his first house because he just couldn't get timber. He couldn't get iron for the roof. He got fibro, like just flat fibro cement sheet, and used clouts on the roof and put tar where each clout went through the fibro. I don't know how many years it was like that until we got tin. These would be some of the houses they're building for their workers, I reckon. Could be wrong, but I'm just guessing that's what it is. Anyway, that's about the gist of it. So, probably doesn't mean anything to anyone else, but it certainly meant a lot to me seeing Pa there. And I don't ever remember him looking that young, I can tell you. Okay, peoples, have fun, and we'll see you when you're on the next video, whatever that happens to be.